Mimosa.
Co-host Kareem.
Welcome to Sometimes We're Boujee and Sometimes We Hood. To healing, navigating grief. It's a podcast dedicated to exploring the complex emotions of loss, the road to healing, and the strength found in remembrance.
Hey. How y'all doing today? Yeah. It's
Can you
another
hear
great
me?
day.
You can't see me.
Nope, can't see you.
Oh, there I
There
go.
you go.
Look, technical difficulties. First,
Yeah.
and I don't think a show goes by when we don't have technical difficulties going on. But anyway, welcome to Sometimes We're Bougie and Sometimes
Sometimes
We're
we're hood.
yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's good.
A podcast dedicated to exploring the complex emotions of loss, the road to healing, and the strength found in remembrance. I'm your host, Auntie Mimosa.
It's cousin Kareem. Here we go.
Yes. And whether you're in the depths of grief, slowly learning to live with loss, or supporting someone on their journey, this space is for you. Grief is deeply personal. There's no timeline, no rule book, and no right or wrong way to navigate through it. But through shared experiences, honest conversations, and moments of reflection, we can find comfort, understanding, and hope. Each episode will dive into the emotions that come with loss, such as anger, sadness, guilt, acceptance, and talk with experts, survivors, and those who have walked this path. You are not alone in your grief. And together we will move forward, honoring the past while embracing the present. And in this episode, we're going to pick up where we last left off at last week, talking about responsibility. Grief so often brings a sense of responsibility, what parts we carry with compassion, and how to put down the burdens that were never ours to begin with. Okay, I'm gonna say that again for the people in the back. Okay,
Just say it again.
how to put down the burdens that were never ours to begin with in dealing with grief. When loss happens, support can feel like a lifeline or sometimes like something that's missing. We'll explore what real support looks like, how to ask for it, and how to offer it to others. When someone we love transitions or is no longer with us, it's not just sadness we feel, it's questions, doubt, guilt, obligation, a huge weight we sometimes put on ourselves, and even a huge weight lifted. Whether you're grieving, walking beside someone who is, or just trying to better understand how to show up for someone who's grieving, this episode is for you. So take a deep breath, find a quiet space, and let's begin this journey toward healing one conversation at a time. Let's talk, let's heal, and let's remember together.
Mm.
So, if you missed last week's episode, we briefly went over the 7 stages of grief. And yes, 7. So at one point, it was 5 that were defined. Shock or disbelief is 1, denial is 2, bargaining 3, anger 4, depression was 5. Now they've added 2 more, which is testing and acceptance to that. Last week, we talked about, the stability and predictability of trying to be in control of, or being out of control when someone transition or you lose that someone close to you, shock of change that you didn't ask for, and the fact of giving your nervous system like a break and reaching out for support. So this week, we're picking up with the different kinds of responsibility in grief. Different kinds of responsibility. So, Cousin Kareem, what do you think those are? What do you think the different responsibilities in grief are? Or do you have an idea? What is your opinion on the different responsibilities in grief?
We had touched on that a little bit, especially like with couples in a relationship
Mm-hmm.
where one person kind of provides the financial support and everything, and then the other spouse, they just kind of live life. And
Right.
then when the main spouse, if you want to say, passes on,
Mm-hmm.
the remaining spouse is stuck because they don't know how to achieve the daily activities.
Right.
It's not just about if you have little people parenting, it's about how to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, handling a budget is not as easy as people would think it is.
Right.
There's a lot more to a balance in a checkbook.
Mm-hmm.
I take for instance, like I remember watching Hulk Hogan, who anyway, that's another story. But Hulk Hogan, before he got his divorce from his wife literally said
Mm-hmm.
on television, she's like, "How could we have no money?" He was like, don't you know how to budget the our balances? She goes, "No, you always just put money in there." So I just kept spending, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"What?" Like, regardless if you keep putting money in there, there's a certain limit that you have, but just that what some people call common sense is not.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
People just don't understand. But then you got the other portion of it of, what if you do have little people?
Mm.
How do you take care of them? My
Right.
situation,
Right.
we're taking care of two special needs adults.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had an idea, but we didn't know the extent of their upbringing to the point that now not only are we raising our three kids, but we're raising them because their mentalities aren't in step with their age. And so now it's a trying situation because
Mm-hmm.
now we thought we're just raising our two and then our three, and then we're going to just be helping these two. But now we find that we're going to have to actually raise them
Mm-hmm.
because they're still in the infancy and teenage stage, even though they're both almost 30 years old. So how
Right.
do that responsibility factor was laid at our feet, and
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, oh, you just gotta dust adjust.
You have to adjust.
Yeah, and it's not an easy adjustment,
Right.
especially if you didn't even really have the whole scope of the picture of what
Mm.
was going on. I think that in a lot of cases, you don't know the scope of what somebody else was dealing with
Right.
because you weren't doing it. You look at it from the outside, like, oh, okay, you know, I got to take care of a dog now. But you didn't know that dog had a problem because you're not a dog person. Like, dogs have a lot of health problems. And so
Right.
now you're taking this dog to the vet and you're watching your bank account go down and down. And you're like, whoa, whoa. Like, I know this person loves this dog, but, you know, I'm thinking about taking it to the pen, like, take it. They're like, hey, like, I can't do this. This is costing me freaking 2 G's every like 2 weeks. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, but yeah, I mean, you just don't know.
Right. So, in that aspect, you're talking about the responsibility of additional individuals or children, or in a if someone that or a relative that may have special needs that someone else may have to take on. Well, what about emotional responsibility?
Oh, ooh, you got to speak on that one because I don't want to draw on, draw too long. Like,
So let's talk about emotional responsibility with grief. That feeling responsible for the sadness of others, or trying to be strong
for everybody.
for everybody.
Yeah.
When you yourself must take time to process and grieve
Yeah.
that transition or loss. And I don't, I want to kind of touch on the emotional that from the perspective of, we always talk about losing loved ones. And like you mentioned, like uh, about losing a pet or the emotional responsibility in grieving when you lose your employment,
Mm.
whether you laid off, whether you're terminated, or even promotions. Like when you leave a position to take on another position, grief is associated with all of that because when you're used to being in a position in with an employer and and you move, yes, you're generally happy or excited about the promotion. Sometimes they're linear, sometimes they're up, a promotion up when you take on more responsibilities. However, your body and your emotions you kind of go through a grieving process with that as well. You also, because you were used to working around, unless you're in a super, super small office where, regardless of your promotion, you're still working with the same individuals every
Yeah.
day, you know. Um, but what is your opinion? What do you think that looks like when it comes to the emotional responsibility on that aspect? Because emotional intelligence, which is a word or two
It's
words,
say it. It's say it.
that especially in the world of employment, corporate, um, is a word that's starting to come up a lot. As a matter of fact, I've been hearing the word emotional intelligence for about 5 or 6 years now. And with emotional intelligence, that is the ability to be able to control your emotions in a situation.
Mm.
It's like being able to keep that poker face on and not become upset or to physically
Rattle.
show
Yeah.
your anger or your displeasement, or to react to negatively to any
Yeah.
situation. And when we talk about the grieving process, that's tough.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence is tough. That is tough to handle.
No, it is. It is. I think of like a couple of situations.
Hmm.
I was never in the military. Got military people in the family,
Hmm.
but went to military school, and when you gotta deal with somebody, when you want to haze them, and you can't show your emotion of like, okay, I'm just gonna have to just process this later, but right now in the moment, I'm just gonna have to keep a steady, strong face. And it's really a taught measure. I think it's really a taught measure. And
Hmm.
I tell my brother Kwame, I said you should be able to go to an employer. Going back to what you're talking about, not to get off subject, going to employers, you should be able to take from your employment and then take the good and the bad and say, okay, if I ever had this job, if I ever wanted to consider owning a business like this, I need to look at the negative and the positive and not
Hmm.
do the negative and recognize when that negative is about to happen and just focus on
Right.
and go towards the positive. So it's working with this lady manager, and I was in sales. And what I realized that she was doing was she wasn't managing people, she was managing people's emotions and personalities. So I would come in,
Mm-hmm.
sell my stuff, meet my quota, and be like, I'm out. you know, and I would leave like a half an hour before I had to. It's like I
Right.
got kids, I gotta help my wife. She's going to stir crazy. You know what I mean? Let
Right.
me go and leave. And she's like, okay. And then one
Mhm.
day, these two dudes came to me and they're like, so how come she's giving you preferential treatment? And I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about. She goes, why do
Mhm.
you get to leave early? I said, do you have kids? No. I said, okay. Are you married? No. I said, okay. So why are you in my business? I said,
Mm.
you don't relate any which way that I do. We're just the way we relate is on the sales level. That's it. And I'm still acing y'all.
Mm.
So you don't understand that she understands me on a different level,
Right.
you
Right.
know. So she knows that I'll get emotional or I'll
Mhm.
get my attitude will change. Not emotion, my attitude, which is part of emotions,
Right. Right.
change if my kids are acting some kind of way or if my wife got stuck on the side of the road. I
Mm.
need to be, she knows my responsibility lay heavy and
Right.
more so towards my family and personal side than this job because she's like she also knows that I could just get up and go and then
Right.
she loses all that productivity.
Right.
So better way to mitigate that is okay, he's doing his job, sometimes he might have to up and go.
Mhm.
It's not that big of a deal to lose a half an hour out of an 8-hour shift, you
Right.
know. And so in that instance now she controls my emotions through her actions by adapting her management skills towards my personality. And I
Mhm.
said, you think about how many employers have ever considered your personality trait that they've witnessed over the first month or a couple of weeks or maybe 3 months during your probation period to identify what are your triggers for good and for negative and for positive. And you look, and I asked myself, I said, man, all
That's
the
a good
managers that I've
question.
had, huh?
I said that's a really good question, and that's I think a good leader, someone who's really good in management that knows how to and understands their management, um, how to look at their individuals to know how to work with them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
That's
then
a good leadership.
being
Right.
sarcastic, I think is a trait. It's not. It's a skill because in so many ways, like so, I've been in sales for like almost like I don't know 16 years, and
Hmm.
so we had this thing that one of our managers had told me. He was a psychologist from Michigan, University of Michigan, and he was a cool guy. And it was so funny because he would sit there. He was tall. He was about 6'3". He would come in there. And sometimes if I had a problem closing people, he would come in there, he would sit at the desk, he would lower his seat. So he's shorter than them. He said it's a psychological advantage. You're
Hmm.
giving them the peer dominance because they're sitting taller than you. And me being a tall man, regardless if they're tall or short, I lower myself to a lower standard to give them the perception of control. But then he had this thing that he would tell us.
Hmm.
He goes, you can use sarcasm in your advantage because if I tell you, hey, you're a dumb motherfucker, you're a dumb motherfucker, it comes off different than me saying, you dumb mother, you know what I mean? Comes off completely different.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I've done it to people. I've literally called people stupid, ugly, dumb mother in front of their face and they smile. And it's just amazing how people take it because you're sitting there smiling. Yeah, I'm gonna punch you in the face right now. Yeah, keep on talking like that. Yeah. And they're
We
looking at you
know.
like they're confused because the words are aggressive,
Mhm.
but your expression
Right.
is not. And it's
Exactly.
just, but that's like I said, sarcasm for people who are in the beginning stages of realizing that they need to control their emotions. It
Hmm.
comes off with such pleasure because you're saying things that it's like you have a filter and it's a controlled filter on
Hmm.
how you present yourself to them.
Right.
And you say things. But then on the side of the emotional side, it's like I'm holding back purposely from
Hmm.
letting my emotions turn into a physical,
Right. Right.
reaction.
Right.
And that's so much control, but you don't realize that when you're in grief. A lot of times you
Hmm.
just especially losing a position. You wanted that position, you got that position,
Right.
and now you didn't think of your life without that position. I think that's why his people were so much shocked. Is
Mm-hmm.
that when they get fired or terminated or transferred, it's just like, wait. I'm so accustomed to doing this thing.
Right. Right.
Now I got to do something else. It's like, I need a second to process that, but you're not given that second to process it.
No, not at all. Not
You
at
got to
all.
just go with it. And
Right.
for some people, they can't handle that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to adapt and overcome. I mean, I always go back to that, but sometimes
Right.
it's just not easy for everybody. How did they handle that? How would you
Exactly.
handle that? How do you handle that?
Well, I can say that throughout my employment career, I have been promoted. I have been laid off. I've quit employers. And I don't believe like I took a moment to grieve. I think the most detrimental one, I was actually terminated from a position, and because it was like out of nowhere, and I think I was more angry. It was like the shock and the anger um were the two that came because I enjoyed I enjoyed the position. So it's like the shock and the anger and behind it. And after that, it was just like, you know what? Freak them. I know who I am. You know what I'm saying? So then I guess you will move down. If you go down the list of the stages of grief, it was the shock, anger, denial, then like skip everything else because I wasn't depressed, and then it was just like acceptance, and then testing and acceptance, or acceptance and testing to find my new way, um, and to go in another direction. So with that, I can say the emotional intelligence. It was just it took everything in me not to lay hands
Yeah, yeah,
on that particular manager because it was personal.
yeah.
That determination was personal. It wasn't as if I did anything, what she wanted to say or what she wanted to pull out to say that I did wrong. It was trivial, very
Right.
trivial. And I want to bring up like emotional responsibility in like the feeling responsible for the sadness of others and trying to be strong for the family. Let's talk about or address narcissism in that.
Woo.
let's address. And before we go on, let's do this so we can kind of hit all three perspectives in the emotional, not just the emotional, but we talk about the different kinds of responsibilities and grief. So like we said, we have the emotional responsibility, then there's the practical responsibility, the arranging of making service arrangements, handling estates, supporting others through their logistics, and then the existential responsibility of feeling like we have to live better in honor to give honor to the person who made their transition, or and not even that, like that, the have to do better or live better, you know and I think a lot of people experience that when it comes to transitioning of employment. You know what I'm saying? Like if you get terminated, like my thing is, and I don't know if you want to call it cockiness or just that level of confidence to where I was like, you know what? I don't need this job. You can have it. I was here for the time being. I did what I was supposed to do. I'm about to show you. And what do they say? The best revenge is what?
Success.
Is
Success.
success. Exactly.
I think
So,
it's the ego. I think it's your ego. Like depending on how you set up, or your
mhm,
personality type. I had this
mhm,
dude I worked with named Craig. He He's like a man of whom. Anyway, nobody
Mhm.
knows that. I'm saying stuff like Hawaiian stuff. But anyway, he's like one of the animated characters for a water company, and
Mm,
he used to tell me. He was telling me, we had like an adversarial, like competitive kind of relationship, and so,
mhm,
but he was like, you got to understand the personality type that you're dealing with.
mm,
The alpha, the beta, Charlie, it's like, some people are followers, C type, B type, or those people who have to analytical, and you have the alpha. And he was like, you got to understand the person you're trying to sell to, but then they
mhm.
also have to understand who they are too.
Right.
They don't understand who they are, then how do you help them understand what you're trying to convey to them? Because
Mm,
selling is just a transfer of beliefs. That's how I was always taught to sell. So it's transfer of beliefs.
right.
I believe you should have this product, and I'm gonna tell you why, and then you're gonna understand and buy this stuff from me.
Mhm,
Purchase it. And but when it comes to like a sense of failure by getting terminated, you have to fall back on those personality types.
mhm.
Because if you're an alpha, you're gonna be like, "Pfft," and like, you know what I mean. After first, like you said, you're like, wait, are you serious? Like, and then you go to the anger. You're like, okay, you'll see.
Right,
You'll see.
right,
We'll,
right.
we'll, we'll revisit this when I see you on the street. Because then
Mm,
you're like, how are you doing that? Oh, I'm doing great.
right.
I'm doing perfect. I'm so glad you let me go because I
Mhm.
just walked into a whole nother new opportunity. Thank you
Right.
very much. And they're looking at it like, wait, what? You were about to jump
Exactly.
over the desk at me, and now you're thanking me? Yeah, let me give you a hug. Matter of fact, let's just hug it out. Like, you know what I mean? I'm gonna
That's
straighten
now
you out.
that's emotional intelligence.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And then it's the sarcasm part. Like I was saying, I realize it now. I got a friend named Reggie. He's completely sarcastic, you know, and he's
Mhm,
just he is straight face, and he just won't get rattled. He's just like, oh, okay, so this is what we're doing.
mhm.
You and you're like, wait, like I just insulted you. Okay, cool. So
Right.
from this point on, I'm deleting you out my phone, and do not ever call me again. I will never call you. Are we? Do we have an understanding? Then he'll talk down to you like a child, and
Mm,
then it will be resolved. And then
mhm.
you're like, the other person is left like, I thought I was the antagonist. Like, how did I come out being the one that's being antagonized? So I learned a lot from him on
Right.
how to, excuse me, use
Uh,
words
right.
to get your point across.
Mm,
And but it helps to know that you can. And what helps with that is that even though you're grieving a griefful situation of separation,
mhm,
how are you going to handle that situation ahead of time? Like I think, preparation is the best defense. And for whatever reason, working for other people,
mhm.
employment, or you can say, okay, at some point, either I might go or they might make me leave.
Right.
If you approach it that way, then you can kind of prep yourself, especially
Mhm.
depending on the management type and how they come across towards everybody or just you. You
Right.
might the situation might come up with people passing on.
Mm,
Like we were talking about on one of the other earlier podcasts, you never know how you're going to deal with it. All you can do is try to hope that you deal with the best and predict how you're going to deal with it. But
right.
that's why we always say it's never, it's not, there's no playbook for it. But
None, not at all. Because, grief hands us like this invisible backpack that's filled with all these weights.
yeah,
And, some of them we choose, and some of them we don't. And we just have to manage them, you know. We just have to manage them. So, and in managing that, let's talk about the guilt trap.
yeah,
And okay, let's we're going to move toward the guilt trap. So, and guilt often masquerades itself as responsibility.
yeah.
Okay. So, can you think of a time where you may have felt guilty about the transition of a loved one, or, you know, the loss of a loss of a job where you have that guilt, and it's like, okay, what do I have to make this right, or I have to take care of aunt so and so or uncle so and so, because we just lost auntie or uncle. um like, what is that? Can you speak to that
Oh
at
yeah, I can speak to that two
all?
times. I mean, I just told you about the with my wife's cousins.
Hmm.
The mentally challenged ones. Like that right there was like, when you want to come home to your house and have a just lay back and relax, and you're like, oh no, I have two, basically they're relatives, but
Hmm.
it's like that peace is not there. That's a
Hmm.
hard thing to come home to when your peace is destroyed.
Hmm.
So, and the other instance, my mom passed. I was in Hawaii. My
Hmm.
younger brother was in New York. Flew back, spent time there, tried to get everything established, thinking that my family was gonna step in since I got like 100 of those mother freakers, and you know what I mean, in New York, and nobody stepped in except for my cousin. One cousin.
Hmm.
Like there's people that I haven't, there's family members that I haven't seen in decades since my mom passed in '99, and it's no big deal. I went back to New York and no more. You know what I mean? It's just like damn, like you knew I was coming and you didn't even make a second of time to come in. And it's just like dang. You look at that. It's like this one. That was your sister. Like,
Hmm.
and you haven't no phone calls, no nothing. Like, and then I'm thinking like, man, I could imagine only how my brother felt being younger and having to take over. Wasn't from my cousin, who's like a cousin brother.
Hmm.
He would have been left out there on his own.
Right.
And
Right.
it was just like, and so we communicate, we talk, thank God for cell phones. But, you know, when we finally talked about it, it was like he felt some kind of way. And I was like, I could understand because I'd probably feel the same kind of way, but I had a family. So
Right.
that's my caveat. I had a family in Hawaii. It's like, am I supposed to up and move my family back to New York to take
Mm.
care of my brother or
Right.
move him out or quarter way literally around the world to
Hmm.
Hawaii just so
Right.
I keep tabs on him? And it
Hmm.
wasn't like he was like 12. I mean, he was like almost 18. The
Right.
times, okay, we got to live anyway, like boom, boom, boom. Like, but when I was young, I was in my mid 20s, I didn't understand
Hmm.
responsibility, but it was
Right.
thrust on me. And I thought that family was going to step up to kind of fill the nuances, but that
Right.
didn't happen. And it left us on an island
Mm.
that we're still on.
Right.
Yeah. And it's
Right.
just like, it's crazy, just that responsibility. It's like, and as I grew older, I met other people who were left with the responsibility of raising a sibling or siblings
Hmm.
because of a transition.
Right.
It's just like, where is the notion that I'm a child or I'm a young adult? I
Hmm.
don't understand. I barely can take care of myself, but now you want me to, because you want me to take care of this other sibling, but I am still trying to understand adulting. Like, there's no school for adulting. And it's
Exactly.
here I'm adulting, and you're telling me, oh, yeah, with your adulting, you're going to throw in childcare. It's like for somebody that's not your child, they're your sibling.
Now,
So,
not only do you have to take care of you, and
yeah,
you don't know how to, you now have to take care of somebody else.
yeah. And then you got to raise them to be responsible, and take care of themselves. It's just like, how's that look? Meanwhile, everybody else is in the background, and then you hear comments, and it's does Wayne Brady have to choke that? You know what I mean? It's like, do I need to get on a plane? Like, what the fuck you making comments on? And you next to the situation, I'm across the world, and now you commenting? Like, don't let me
Hmm.
see you in person. Maybe that's why nobody ever came and calls me. I just realized that because I threaten people a lot. The
So,
desire to want to follow through wholeheartedly. I think they know that. I know they know that. I don't even think they think, but I'm reflecting back now, actually, as I'm talking. You know,
Right.
never actually really accepted my responsibility in this. But
Mhm.
anyway, it's like now,
But that's but that is a thing. But that's a real thing. The acceptance of the responsibility when a loved one makes their transition, even when you lose a pet, okay? Or the responsibility of, what has to be done next. Like, okay, so like here's some common guilt thoughts, like I should have been there more, I should have noticed something was wrong, and I should have done more to save them. And those are more or less like we just got finished, with May being mental health month. And I think those comments are more for, because we do know, like, suicide is at an all-time high, um, within society. And it's not just, the African American community, Caucasian, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And I think that's one I can say that was one of the things. I don't have I should have been there more, but I have, like, I should have made more phone calls. I should have stayed in contact more. I should, and I just explained this yesterday, where I went to a girlfriend's 50th birthday party. I saw some former coworkers, and one of my old coworkers was like, "Oh, we need to stay in touch more." And it's always that, right? When you see people, but like, and what I explained to him was that, you know, we say that, and yes, we might start when that person leaves to say, okay, we're calling, we're texting, and doing our best to keep in touch. And then a distraction comes in, or an emergency comes in. And then before you know it, a month has went by, 2 months has went by, um 3 months have went by, 5 months has went by, a year has went by, 2 years have went by, and then there is an occasion that brings you all together. And I think this is like one of the things I said, that funerals has a tendency, like funerals and weddings, they have a tendency to bring people together, but do they stay together?
Mm.
And there is an exchange of phone numbers and email addresses and addresses, but do you continue
The
to
farce.
the communication? Do you continue that communication? Does it stay?
I call it
And
a farce.
you call it
I
what?
call it a farce.
A
Like you
farce?
continue the farce. Yeah, the deception. Because you ever get the people
Okay.
who come up to and they be like, "Oh, I've been in the call. It's been so
Mm-hmm.
what's your new number?" And you're like, "It's the same freaking number it was the last time. Why don't you check your phone right now and see what the number is?
Because of
Why don't you just
grieving
delete my
therapy,
number
y'all.
out your damn phone?" It's like, what are you talking about? Like, you know damn well you deleted my number out your phone. I see, I'm gonna play. This is the whole sarcastic part, right? Where you just like, "Oh, let me give you the same number I had before. How about that?"
Because of
Yeah.
grieving
You ready?
therapy.
I do need therapy. That's why I'm on here with you. This is my self therapy. Y'all just help me through it, everybody. Yeah. Because
I love
this
this
is
though.
it's funny because that happens. And then
Yeah.
what's worse is with your family.
Yeah.
How you gonna sit there and be like, "Oh, I was calling your old number. Let me get your new one." And you looking at them like, what?
The
You know
number
we
is
family,
not
right? I can
changing.
smack you. Like legally, I
Right.
can smack you right now. Like, like what are you talking about? Like, how are you seriously sitting up here
Because
telling
the
me you
number
don't have my
hasn't changed, right?
yeah? It's like my brother's number.
Right.
How you got too many resources to have gotten my number for you to
Mhm.
sit up here and bold-faced lie in front of me.
Mhm.
I think that's what it is the worst part about it is the bold-faced lie. It's
Mm.
just like, oh, I was meaning to. You were
Right.
meaning to do what? Like, can
Pick
we
up the
finish
phone.
that sentence? Because you don't even know what you was meaning to do. Because if you meant to do it, you would have did it.
Right.
Yeah. You don't be like, oh, I was meaning to eat dinner, but I forgot I just went to bed. Let's just do that. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like I was meaning to go to the bathroom tonight, but I decided to get out the bed and just pee in the bed. You know what I mean? All of that. You know what I mean? It's just like you wasn't meaning to do nothing. If you meant to do it, you would have done it. Like, stop it. We're
I
adults. We're
agree.
not kids no more.
I agree. I agree with that. It is, and that is true.
And when we grieving, we give account. We give. How do you say? What's the word I'm trying to look for? You give credence to people lying to you.
Mm.
I really miss you.
Oh,
Oh, I
say
really
that
miss them.
again.
You're the person that
Say
passed
that
away. Let it
again
let
for
it be your parent, and then you like, or a spouse or somebody close, and you're like, oh my goodness, I wish I would. Yeah, I look, and you look at them like your eyes just get, it's like they're like, why are your eyes getting big? Like, what's wrong? It's just like because they're lying. That's like
mm,
part of it when you. It's like your reception for lying gets increased. It's like the dial turns up. You're like, okay, the lie detector, and then you sit back. And you're like, just breathe, and then you
mhm.
say it out loud. They're like, oh, are you okay? Are you having? Oh no, I'm just controlling my emotions right
Right, right.
now. And you smile. Because I have a lot of stupid people around me right now.
Well, we have to remember, like, guilt doesn't mean that doesn't always mean that you did something wrong. And it often just reflects how deeply you cared for that individual. And like I said, I had a girlfriend who lived yeah, I'm gonna say that, a girlfriend who lived in California. And we were the same age at the time that she transitioned from a heart attack. We were 45.
Mm.
And the last time that I had saw her interacting with her was when we all had did a girls cruise for another girlfriend's birthday. And then, like, after the cruise, we spent time in Miami, and then we kind of stayed in touch. But again, life gets busy, and it's just really a matter of taking the time to stop, like, if you can. I'm terrible with this because out of sight, out of mind for me, and I have to get better. Definitely have to get better with this. And but I'm also the type of person that if I continue to keep reaching out to you,
Mm.
you do not reach back out to me, I'm going to stop.
Yep.
I'm going to stop. And then eventually, you know, you'll be like, oh, I didn't. Then here comes that, oh, I've been meaning to call you. Well,
Yeah.
and I'll
It's
tell
two-way street.
people, right. And I will tell people, like, people haven't seen them. Why haven't you called me in a minute? The phone works two ways. There's also social media now, and there's email. You can, I see you on social media liking all my posts, liking everything I put up. It's, I used to dial the phone. I used to call, but no, I'm not doing it anymore. But and I've often said that guilt and grief is love that has nowhere to go.
Mm. That's deep.
Okay? Because you don't know what to do with the love that you have for that person. And here's a question. Here's a question we can ask the audience, and they can always reflect back or comment on this. Is guilt rooted in reality or in love and longing? I'm going to say that again. Is guilt rooted in reality or in love and longing? That's something to think about.
I think love and long.
You
I
think love
think
and
it's because it's not reality. Because grief and love and everything transcends space and time.
longing?
And the reason why I say that is because you have you can love somebody who you barely met. You can love somebody who impacted you in such a way
Mm-hmm.
without the physical love. Like, I think the misinterpretation on love, in a sense, is that love has to do with sex, you know, and not everybody. A lot of people look at that as
Mm-hmm.
love having to do with sex. You know, they don't look at it as an aspect. Oh, I can love my friend, an object, a thing, and then it's just like there's different levels of love. But the
Mm-hmm.
love that you have, it transcends time, because how can you still have the same emotional attachment to a grandparent when they've been gone, passed on for how long? But
Mm-hmm.
the feeling, the emotional impact of that person is still there. You know,
Right.
the same thing like with divorce. You can have loved somebody, and then now you're divorced, and now you have a immense amount of grief, disdain, sometimes even hatred towards that person now.
Mm-hmm.
But the connection is still there because it was brought on initially by love, and
Right.
now it's turned into something completely different. And
Right.
it's uncontrollable because you like, I just want to let it go. And then it's just like, but a thought, situation, an
Mm-hmm.
image can
Mm-hmm.
bring back all of those emotions. And then you jump back from Jump Street, because
Right.
start from, I can't stand that person, but then you remember, you go backwards through that time frame, and then you go back to the point where you guys originally met. And it's like, why does it play like out like that? It's like a rolling of emotions. It's like a wave. Like you start up present and you go backwards, and then sometimes a wave right come backwards. You know, where you go from disdain to love, back to disdain. It's like a remembrance. Like, yeah, I don't love this dude or this person, this girl. You know what I mean? And you're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that was just a wave. It's gone now. You know, it's
Right.
shallow. And
Right.
it's like, but when it comes to loved ones that transition, it's like when those moments hit, sometimes it's really debilitating, where you just have to stop. I
Mm-hmm.
need to take a break. I'm gonna go sit in the stairwell. Don't talk to me. I'll be back in 15 minutes. But you just had your, I said, hey, I'll be right back.
Mm-hmm.
I need to take a break, you
Right.
know. And you got to get away. You just got to detach yourself from where you're at, but you can't function.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, it's like that's what you say about the reality. It's like I think it's trapped in the love, because the reality. Let me back up. I said the reality of things is not always what it seems to be, because what reality are you in?
Right. Right. And
People
speaking of
don't
that,
know what
right.
reality they're in. You know.
Right. And speaking of that, the real versus fake or false responsibility. How about that?
Mm,
So, and the questions to ask, was this truly within my control?
mm,
Your emotions, like, are your emotions, was this truly within my control? Would my loved one want me to carry this blame? And am I expecting perfection from myself?
whew, that's another one right there. That's another one right there. Cause I'm telling you, like what keeps me going.
Mm-hmm.
There's been times that I legally wise. How did they say? There's been things that I've gone through in my life where I didn't wasn't going to be here anymore. But it's like I look at these situations. I say, okay, well, I'm here for a purpose because I survived. And I look at my mom pictures. I look at them. I'm like, how was she? If she was still here,
Mm-hmm.
if I asked her, my mom got to a point. Let me back up. My mom got to a point in her life where she didn't give advice anymore. She waited for you to ask, but she would have a caveat. She'd be like, okay, so my understanding is that you're asking for this information. I mean, to comment on the situation, give you advice. So, since you came to me, however I give it to you, are you going to accept it?
Oh.
And if you're going to accept it, I don't want to hear anything in the backwoods about you being upset. Do we have an understanding?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is one of the reasons why I cursed everybody out of her wake in the church,
Mm.
because this is what she would do. They would ask her information, and she would give this caveat, and then they
Mm-hmm.
would get all pissed and start talking behind her back, and then I would find out about it. Anyway, it was just a matter of, are you going to accept what somebody has to say if you're asking advice? And then everybody was, oh, it's such great advice. I wish I'd listen. Oh, your mom is so brilliant. Oh my gosh, help. Oh, she's so beautiful. It's like, what? Like, shut up. I know what you said, after that. But, and it's just like, it's
Mm-hmm.
a matter now of, for me, it's just, I could never, I picked up my gun like twice
Mm.
to take myself out. And it came to a point of, like, mom's passed away. It's just like she's like one of those big head things from football on the wall. It's like boom, like her image of her face, and I'm just like, oh, whoa, where did you come from? And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, there's no way she would have been okay with that.
Right.
And because of that guilt, I've never uh, accomplished that task.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that guilt of, she put so much into me that how dare I give up? How's that? You ever had that impression, like, if somebody put so much into you, you've gotten, it's like you thought they didn't, that you wanted more from them to
Mm-hmm.
help push you, but you realize you already got it at some point. When you overcome a situation, you look back and be like, thanks, mom. Thanks, grandma. You know what I mean? It's like, it's that
It's,
point where you like accept it.
it's I would say it is definitely an obstacle. It's definitely challenging because a lot of my accomplishments that a lot of my accomplishments and achievement and success in my life was done for my grandmother, for my mother, for my sons. Um, Now, in my home, I have a wall, what I call wall of accomplishments. And it's my high school diploma, my bachelor's degree is on the wall, my master's degree, the program from when my play was produced. So I have the program, framed. What else is here? I can look at it now. uh, Flyers, because that's what I'm facing. Flyers from as a motivational speaker, as events that I've spoken at. What else is up here? An award that I received for when I worked in North Carolina. What my certificates as a sharpshooter. I mean, um, all of things like all the events that I've participated in. I call that my wall of accomplishments. And now, and I think I've said this before, like I had these goals and dreams and plans with Deej before he transitioned.
Yeah.
And when that happened, and it was like I saw him maybe a month prior to his accident. And that's what I'm gonna call it, his accident. And we talked and I talked to him, and it was just like I kind of do get that guilt. It was like, oh, if I knew this was going to be the last time I saw you, I would have hugged you tighter.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? If I knew this was going to be the last time that I saw you, I would have told you to come back to Atlanta with me to avoid the accident. It was like it's almost like if I could have predicted or if I
It's
could
that
have
Greg.
saw the future,
Yeah.
I would have, that's that if I could have done more.
Yeah.
Um,
That moment of regret, that moment of those moments. I can't say that moment. Those moments when you, because I think the closer you are to people, not to cut you, I apologize, but when you're close to somebody, it's never one moment of regret. It's a multiple moments of regret. Like there's certain levels that you regret the obvious situation of them passing, but then you regret the moments of, I could have picked up the phone call. I could have went there. I could have, and then that's why I
right.
say it's the regrets. It's those things that just come out, and you're like, oh my goodness,
And
like
that's a part of that guilt.
yeah.
That's a part of that guilt. So, uh,
Oh
of
wow, that
course,
was quick.
yeah. And of course, grief can blur the lines between what we wish we could have done
Mm,
and what was ever humanly possible.
right.
So, with that, I'm going to say that responsibility is part of grief, but it doesn't have to crush us.
Mm,
We can separate guilt from love, and we can honor real duties with humanity and not with impossible standards. And when we lay down the burdens that don't belong to us, okay, and we can lay down the burdens that do not belong to us. And with that being said, thank you for joining us today on this journey through grief, healing, and remembrance. Grief is not something we simply get over. It's something we can learn to carry, something that shapes us, and something that teaches us about love and resilience. As you move through your own process, remember to be patient with yourself.
mm,
There is no timeline, no right or wrong way to grieve. Honor your feelings, embrace the memories, and allow yourself a space to heal in your own time. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to reach out, share your story, and let us know how grief has shaped your journey. And if you know someone who might need this conversation, please share this episode with them. If you would like to leave a review, share it with someone who might need it, or reach out to us, you can reach us on Instagram at SBSH Grief Podcast. That's SBSH Grief Podcast for Sometimes We're Bougie, Sometimes We're Hood, Grief Podcast. On Facebook at Sometimes We're Bougie, Sometimes We're Hood. And on TikTok, if y'all are on the Tickety Talk, Sometimes We're Bougie, Sometimes We're Hood. And remember to like, follow, share, and comment on the platform you desire. We do look forward to hearing from you. And remember,
yes.
love doesn't mean carrying the impossible, it means showing up imperfectly again and again. And next week's show is a special show. It's the all male show. Auntie Mimosa is not
Yes.
here for this one. Whoo, look, I'm almost scared to turn the controls over. So, next Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's Cousin Kareem,
Yeah.
Jaquan Johnson, and Mandelion. They're going to do a special male show with the upcoming of Father's Day. And then on Father's Day will be myself, Auntie Mimosa, and Jaquan. And we'll guide you through the Father's Day grief. But the men have it next Sunday. So, y'all, all I can say is tune in because I don't know. I'm letting the controls go.
Woo! Gonna have some fun.
That
Yeah.
might be a 2 hour show. It's not an hour. It might be a 2 hour one.
Yeah.
But until next time, please be kind to yourself. Hold space for your emotions. And remember, you are never alone in this journey. Grief is love with nowhere to go. And you deserve all the care in the world. So take care.
Enjoy.
It's a podcast dedicated to exploring the complex emotions of loss, the road to healing, and the strength found in remembrance.